All right, I will say good morning. Good morning. Let us begin. Begin by thanking our sponsors for this morning's shir. To thank our Talmud Torah sponsors for the month of Tammuz. Rabbi Naftali Tilson, thank you, Ari. Thank you so much. Rabbi Naftali Tilson from Eretz Yisrael for dedicating over Sherman Joshos this month in commemoration of the yahrzeit of his beloved parents, Rabbi Yonah ben Avram Leib and Rivka Bas Yaakov. We hope that in the merit of our Talmud Torah, the Shamash Tavin Aliyah, and the family in Nechama. We thank our Week of Learning sponsors, Jacob and Julie Blumenfeld, for dedicating the Shiurim this week. Le'ili Nishmas, Jacob's grandmother, Hannah Bas Mordechai. We hope that in the merit of our Talmud Torah, the Neshama Havin Aliyah, and the family in Nechama. And we dedicate our learning. We know that in the IDF operation in Jenin, there was one soldier who was killed, David Yehuda Yitzchak. We hope that in the merit of our Talmud Torah, his precious and beautiful neshama will have an aliyah. His family will know no more tsar, and Emir Hashem, all of the precious neshamas of the IDF, Shemir Hashem Bizocha, to successfully fulfill their mission and come home to their families safely. We'll say with that, let us begin. We have a lot to do today, a really incredible daf. Actually, very exciting. There's actually even going to be some stories today. I know it's been a little while since we've had some stories. Not a Gadata per se, but a couple of stories. Today's daf is Nun Beis 52. We are picking up, we have to quickly finish up the last sugya. We're picking up on Nun Aleph on the Beis 51b, 10 lines up from the bottom. We had a machlokes, Rabbi Elazar ben Yaakov and the Chachamim. So the Gemara says, in reality, that machlokes is anchored in the position of Rabbah. What did Rabbah say? Da'amar Rabbah, mipnei ma amra Torah, modeh b'mixas hatayni yishava. I will say, why is it that we have a concept that a partial admission generates an oath? Remember again, paradigmatic example of this, right? Reuven goes over to Shimon. Reuven says, Shimon, you owe me $1,000. Shimon says, not true, I only owe you $500. What's the halacha? He obviously pays the $500 that he admitted to, and he has to take a shvuah, an oath, on the remaining $500. What's the logic of that oath? So the Gemara says, Chazaka in adameiz panabit meibachova. There's a Chazaka in general will say that a person is not going to lie directly to the face of his creditor. So in reality, so remember again, Reuben goes over to Shimon and says, Shimon, you owe me $1,000. Shimon said, so Shimon ideally would like to deny the entire loan. Now, also we're going to see, the reason Shimon wants to deny the entire loan is not because he doesn't want to pay back. He doesn't want to pay back now. He doesn't have the money now. Right? See, his thought is, both say, so often in life, instead of directly confronting and talking out issues, what we do is we create workarounds without recognizing that our workarounds actually just create so much more work. That's what they do. So really, in reality, Shimon is willing to repay. He just doesn't want to repay now. So what's his svar? His svar is, let me just say I don't owe. The problem is a debtor, is not going to totally deny the loan to his creditor because that would be a chutzpah. In reality, Shimon wants to admit the entire debt. This is so interesting. You just said Shimon wants to deny the whole debt. And then we said that Shimon wants to admit the whole debt. So which one is it? The answer is yes. Right? Shimon wants to pay. We'll say why? Because people want to do the right thing. But right now Shimon is unable to pay. So what does he figure? He figured, let me just deny it, buy myself some time, and when I have more money, I'll be able to pay. So why doesn't he just admit the entire amount? He's buying himself some time. Ultimately, again, when I have the money, then I'll admit the debt. So I will say that's the svara of modeh b'mixas. In reality, when Shimon admits half the debt, I will say, now is it possible that Shimon really only owes Reuven $500? Is that possible? Sure. But it's also apparently equally, if not more possible, that he owes him the full $1,000, and the only reason he's only admitting to $500 is to buy himself some time. So what does the Torah do? So what does the Torah say? The Torah says, you know what? Impose upon him a shvuah. Once I will say, so again, so ultimately, a shvuah allows the person, or a shvuah creates a mechanism through which, if Shimon does owe the entire amount, he will be obligated to go ahead and admit that. So we'll say, that is the svara of modeh b'mixas. So what's the shayla? Which we've seen before many times. So what's the shayla? So remember again, the case that came up was a case of where Reuven says to Shimon, your father lent me $1,000. I paid him back $500. Here's the remaining $500. So I will say, so the shaila was, is that a modeh b'miktsas case or not? Should Reuven then have to take a shvuah on the remaining $500 or not? Or on the supposed repaid $500 or not? So what happens? So Rabbi Yaakov Sarah Loshna Bo Veloshna Bibno Eno Meis Behilchach Lav Meshiv Abeidahu. So Rabbi Yaakov says there's really no difference in a modeh b'miktsas case. Ultimately, again, whether the borrower is talking to the actual lender or to the son of the lender, right? But rather, again, I both say we look at this as a typical modeh b'miktsas case, and therefore, halacha l'maisa, Reuven is going to have to swear about the $500 that he supposedly paid back. For Rabbanan Savi, the Rabbanan, on the other hand, hold bohu de'eno meis. No. It's only that a borrower would not be so brazen to deny the loan into the face of his lender. Aval bibno, but with the son of the lender, Rabbi say, now what's the chap with the son of the lender? Meis, he would deny the loan. Why would he deny the loan? Why? Because Rabbi say the son of the lender, Bepashtos, has no first-hand knowledge of his father's debt. So because of that, I will say, in general, it's actually interesting. What the Gemara explains is, there's, even chutzpahdik people, there's a cap to the amount of chutzpah you're going to have. A cap, even though we all know that guy who has no cap to his chutzpah, right? But Lamaisa, generally, people, so the idea over here is a person is not going to lie directly into the face of the person who lent him money and said, I don't owe you anything. The most he'll do is he'll deny half. And this way, again, if he denies, and what's the svara? The svara is, I'm going to pay the rest. But when? Later on, when I have the money. So I'll say, here, interestingly enough, so the Chachamim say that ultimately this idea that a borrower wouldn't lie is only a din directly to the lender, but not a din to the son of the lender. And therefore, I'll say, listen to this. The Chachamim hold that in a case where Reuven goes ahead and says, I borrowed $1,000 from your father. I already paid him back $500. Here's the remaining $500. The truth is, Reuven would feel just as empowered to fully lie to the son of the borrower. The fact that he admits that he owed the debt, number one, that he repaid part of it and that he still owes money, that's the Rabbanan say kimeshiv aveda, like returning a lost object. Rabbi say, what's the halacha when you return a lost object? What did we say in the Mishnah? What's the halacha? No shvuah. So I'll say that's the end of the sugya. So how do we paskin? So first of all, I said, let me work back. So let me actually tell you the ikra halacha. So the Rambam paskins. The Rambam says this is in Hilchos Gzela, Perek Yud Gimel halacha tes. Hamotzi mitzia lo yishava. So I'll say this is the halacha. This is how we paskin. You find the lost object, you take it back to the owner. The owner says, that's great, but there was more. Whatever the more is. You return a bag of money, there were 2 bags of money. You return 1 ox, there were 2 oxen. You return $100 wallet, there was $200 in the wallet. So we'll say, what's the halacha? The returner of the lost object is never obligated to take a shvuah. Why? Mipnei tikkun ha'olam. Benefit of society. And the Rambam says it explicitly. Shem'at ha'omer yishava. Because if you make the returner of a lost object take an oath, we'll say, what's going to happen? Yaniach ha'metzia v'yelech. Guy's going to say, forget this. I'm happy to do the right thing. But at the end of the day, not if it's complicated. So I'll say, that is how we pass halacha l'maisa. So if you, and this is, by the way, this kind of case is actually very shaykh. This does happen. Where a person returns a lost object, you get back your lost object, like, oh, thank you. And they're like, oh, what's the O? The O was $500 in the wallet. Now there's only $100. Now what happened? I don't know what happened. But Lamaisa, no shavua obligation in that situation. Mipnei tikkun ha'olam. Rabbi say that's number one. Number two, the Rambam paskins that halacha lamaisa in the case where we're dealing with the father, or I should say the son, which is the case that we just saw before, top of Nun Aleph in the days. Reuven goes over to Shimon. Reuven says, Reuven says, Shimon, your father lent me $1,000. I paid back $500. Here's the remaining $500. Or even the reverse case. Shimon goes over to Reuven and says, Reuven, my father lent you $1,000. What happened? And Reuven says, I paid him back $500. Here's the remaining $500. The Rambam paskins, that is not a modeh b'miktsas case, but rather that's a meshiv aveda case. Right? Why? What's the logic? It's only modeh b'miktsas when we say that the borrower would not lie to the creditor. When do we say that the borrower wouldn't lie to the creditor? when it's the creditor himself. When it's the son of the creditor, he absolutely would lie. The fact that Reuven's admitting to any level of this debt or of coming of his own volition makes it like the returning of a lost object, and therefore halacha l'maisa, there is no shavua in that case as well. Incredible. Good. Let's say I'll just mention something interesting. Just something interesting that if you think about Moda Mixas, it's also powerful, like on a hashkafic level. Right? So we'll say, so what's the whole din of Moda Mixas? A person in life is confronted with liability. Right? We all have liability. There are things I've done wrong and things I have to fix. So we'll say, what happens when a person is confronted with liability? So my first reaction is, let's say in general, what's the first reaction of people when confronted with wrongdoing? I didn't do it. Not me. So I will say, that's what I'd like to say. Right? When confronted with my personalistic spiritual liability, I'd like to say, not me, but ein adam meis panav bifnei bal chovo. Right? I can't say to HaKadosh Baruch Hu I didn't do it. Why? Because the Ribono Shel Olam knows that I did it. So there's really no way for me to get out of that. Okay, so what happens? But still, I have such a strong desire just to pretend like I had no problems. Right? To pretend like there are absolutely no issues. So I'll say, but I can't do that. Why? Ein adam meis panav b'fnei bal chovo. I'm going to tell the Melech Malchei HaMelechim, I'm going to tell the Ribono Shel Olam that there's nothing wrong when he knows that everything is wrong. So I will say, so what do I do? So then my next reaction is, Ubekule boy delude. Fine, I'll just admit everything. Take responsibility for everything. So Rabbi Gemara says, but that I can't do. Why? I will say, then I say to myself, I can't admit everything. So instead, what I'll do is, I'll admit some things till I give myself a little bit of breathing room to take ownership over the rest of the stuff. I can't admit everything that's broken in life, because that's a lot. I have a lot of stuff that's broken. So instead, what am I going to do? I'll be Moda B'Mikzas. I'll admit that certain things are broken, certain things are in a state of disrepair, but no way that I could admit everything. So what does HaKadosh Baruch Hu do? Right? Savar adahavili zuzi paranale. Let me get a little bit more time, quote unquote, a little bit more money, a little bit more credit, a little bit more capital, a little bit more personal capital, and then I'll own up to the rest of the stuff that's broken. So what does HaKadosh Baruch Hu do? Va'amar Achmana rami alei shivua. HaKadosh Baruch Hu imposes a shivua. I will say it's interesting. Hashem Devar Kodesh says, what's the shivua that HaKadosh Baruch Hu imposes upon us? It's the shivua Meseches Nida. Right? The Gemara says that when a person comes into the world, right, there's a shvua, there's an oath that is administered to him. The shvua is Tehi Tzadik, Va'al Tehi Rasha. Be righteous. HaKadosh Baruch Hu imposes a shvua, and I will say, what's the point of the shvua? The point of the shvua, I will say, is own it. Whatever is broken, own it. We spend so much time and so much energy first trying to deny that there are personal problems. Then, after I can no longer deny that there are personal problems, so instead, what do? I'm Moda B'Mikzas. Fine, there's some problems. And Chodesh Baruch Hu says, just own it. I'm not even telling you have to fix everything right now. I'm not telling you that you have to go ahead and remedy everything that's wrong. But at least find the personalistic courage to own the things that are broken. Right? Don't spend your life running. Don't spend your life making excuses. Don't spend your life pretending. Don't spend your life being a Moda B'Mikzas. If something is broken, whatever is broken, own it. Because the sooner I own it, even if I can't fix it now, in Meretz Hashem, at least I know down the road what needs to be remedied. Incredible. I will say, let's go back to Mishnah. Who knew that Moda B'Mikzas was such an important hashkafic concept as well? Incredible. I will say, Mishnah, great sugi ahead of us now. Nun Beis Amud Aleph. Yisomim. Shesam Choyitza Avian. Shesam Choyitza Balabayis. So I will say, orphans. Orphans, talking about, again, who are reliant on a balabais. I will say this, they're reliant on someone to manage the affairs of their household. Okay. Or their father appointed a custodian. Apotropos, an executor, a custodian. So I'll say this means that the father during his lifetime appointed someone to run the estate when he died. Chayiv la'aseh perosem. Ultimately, again, this either this balabayis who's taking care of the yisomim, or the apotropis is obligated to tithe their produce, to tithe the produce of the yisomim. Okay, apitroshim, avi yisomim. So we'll say that apotropis who is appointed by the father of the yisomim, yishava, has to swear. I will say what this means is at a certain point in time, in his apotropishood, or maybe even at the conclusion of his apotropishood, he has to go ahead and swear that he has not misappropriated any of the assets of the estate. Beis lo yishava. If he's appointed by Beis Din, then he's not obligated to swear. Abishal omer chiluf hadvarim. Abishal says just the opposite. Just the opposite. If he's appointed by the father, ultimately again, he doesn't have to swear. If he's appointed by Beis Din, he does have to swear. Fine, we'll see that machlokes in the Gemara. Or minu. So let's talk about the first point. The first point the Gemara Mishnah made is that an apotropos or a balabayis who is caring for the affairs of the yisomim has to tithe their produce. Samar says, Raminhu, ask Akasha, Atem. So we'll say the pasuk when speaking about Truma says, King Tarimu Gam Atem Trumas Hashem. What do we learn from Atem? Atem velo shutvim. So we'll say it can only be the person himself, the owner of the produce himself, not a partner. Atem velo arisim, the owner, not a sharecropper. Atem velo apotropin, you and not a custodian. Atem v'lo atar b'sheinu shalo. Only you, the owner, and not someone who tithes something that's not theirs. So I will say, what do you see from here? So the direct owner of the produce has the right to tithe the produce, not an apotropis. This contradicts the Mishnah. Amr Chisda lo kashya kan lahachi el kan lahaniach. I will say, there's two different types of tithing that could be done. There's tithing in general to eat right now, and then there's tithing for storage, right? Ideally, one should tithe all of their produce and tithe it immediately. When it comes to yisomim, what we say is like this. Apotropis, whatever the yisomim are going to eat, tithe that now before we don't want them eating tevel, right? So tithe their food right now. But if other stuff is being put like into storage, into the silo, don't tithe that now. Don't tithe that now. Only tithe as consumed. As consumed. So therefore the Mishnah that says that the apotropis tithes, that's when the yisomim are going to eat. The Brisa that says the apotropis does not tithe, that is for food that is going to be stored. Vatanya, we learned, we'll say this supports this idea. Apotropis has the ability to tithe for the sake of consumption, but not for storage, or not for produce that's going to be stored. Now we'll say, now along these same lines, very interesting, behema avadim ushvachos, batim besados ukramim lahachil, avolo lahaniach. The apotropis has the right to sell the property of the estate if the yisomim need the funds for food. So he could sell off, literally again, animals, slaves, maidservants, homes, fields, vineyards, lahachil. If the yisomim need it for their actual support, but I will say, but not for investment purposes. As well, lahaniach means to put money into savings, or even for investment purposes, that he can't do. I will say, in this situation, the custodian is very limited with his ability to transform assets. What we really want him to do, I will say, his job is really to keep the estate in a holding pattern until the yisomim are old enough to take over the affairs of their own. Similarly again, he can sell off fruit, wine, oil, flour, in order to provide food for the yisomim, but again, not to generate savings. Similarly, again, the apotropis could go ahead and provide for them, whether that's by selling property or by utilizing money in the estate. For lulav, va'arava, sukkah, tzitzis, the chol davar sheyesh lo kitzvah. For any mitzvah that has a defined shear. Lasuyi shofar, to include shofar, velochin sefer Torah, was a second wide line, velochin sefer Torah, tefillin and mezuzos. Also, the apotropis could buy for the yisomim, sefer Torah, tefillin, mezuzos, the chol davar sheyesh lo kitzvah. I'll say this refers to ritual objects, right? Any ritual objects that have a defined amount. Lasuye megillah, to include a megillah. Okay, so ve'im poskan aleim tzedakah. Very interesting. The apotropis cannot make a tzedakah pledge for the yisomim. So he can't give tzedakah from the estate. Ve'im podinas hashvuyin, he cannot redeem captives. V'lo kol davar she'ein lo kitzvah. And I will say it includes he can't engage in anything that doesn't have a ceiling. And I will say what that means is, what does it mean it doesn't have a ceiling? We already spoke about you can't redeem captives for more than their value. What it means is there's always tzedakah to be given, and there are always captives to be redeemed. So those kind of issues, or those kind of items, or those kind of causes, the apotropis cannot involve the estate of the Yisomim. So what you see over here, Abosai, is, so far, the apotropis is permitted to go ahead and sell off assets to feed the Yisomim. He's also permitted to spend money on defined mitzvah or ritual obligations. Incredible. So, for example, he can't spend money to go ahead and console mourners. Like, let's say, again, he can't go ahead and sponsor the Sudas Havra, which is the meal of consolation, the meal that the Avelim eat when they come back from the cemetery, because something that has no limit. What it means it has no limit is there are always Avelim. As opposed to tefillin, right? How many pairs of tefillin does a person need? Okay, if you're a chassid, you need Rashi and Avelim Tam. But if you're not a chassid, right? So again, you need one pair of tefillin. In other words, it has a kitzvah. It has an amount. Right? Lulav and esrog has an amount. Mezuzahs have a defined amount. So if it has a defined amount, you can spend the money of the estate. Doesn't have a defined amount, you can't spend the money of the estate. And apotropos I can't go to court, right? Can't go to Beis Din, or can't litigate. Ultimately, again, with the estate of with the property of the Yisomim, whether to be successful or to lose. So the Gemara says, Lazakos, I don't understand. If he can be successful and grow the estate, why can he not litigate? I will say this is fascinating. So the Gemara says, rather what it means is he can't go to court if there's a possibility of losing. I will say, Rashi points out over here a fascinating halacha. If an apotropos goes to court to litigate something regarding the matter of the estate, if he goes ahead and he wins, the verdict stands. If he loses, the verdict is voided. Which is fascinating. So in other words, there is no such thing as a negative judgment passed on the estate of Yisomim. So I will say, as such, it doesn't make sense for the apotropos to go to court, because I will say it's a lopsided verdict. And I will say it's not because necessarily it means that the Yisomim are always right. It's because, remember again, the way the system is set up is we want to maintain the estate for the Yisomim until they become older. Fine. But let's say again the apotropos has an opportunity to go ahead and sell a field, an asset that is far away, and go ahead and redeem it for an asset that is closer. He can't do that. Right? Similarly, again, he can't swap a bad field for a good field. So the Gemara says, "My taima the dilma mishtatfin," because Rabbi said maybe the good field that he acquires ultimately, again, mishtatfin Rabbi said literally means is going to get wind damage. In other words, what we say to the apotropos is leave it alone. Right? Just leave everything alone. Your job is to maintain a holding pattern. Rabbi said this is very interesting because sometimes when we think about an apotropos, we think about someone whose job is not just to maintain, but to grow. So you see from here again, from the halacha is clear, no. His job is maintain. And by the way, maintain even if some interesting opportunities come along that may be objectively beneficial for the Yisomim, we still tell the apotropos, leave it alone. Leave it alone. By the way, you'll ask yourself, what's the pshat with this? Right? Let's say there is an opportunity here. There are some opportunities that are objectively beneficial, right? There are obviously everything has risk, but there are why? We'll say so. You have to listen also like on a deeper level. What we tell the apotropos is listen. Your job, maintain. We'll say who takes care of Yisomim? Who takes care of Yisomim? The Ribbon Shalchash Baruch who says that dafka for the widow and for the yasam, for the widow and for the orphan. HaKadosh Baruch who says, I have a special place in my heart for them. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu essentially says to the apotropos, halachas to the apotropos, just hold, right? Just hold. What's the what are doctors? What's the oath? Doctors, no harm. Do no harm, right? So I said, do no harm. Right? That's essentially the apotropos. Do no harm. We don't even want you to help. Just do no harm. Why? HaKadosh Baruch Hu has got this. Paul says, Similarly, again, apotropos can't sell fields and purchase slaves. So what's interesting? Apparently, he can sell slaves to buy fields. They both say something like that is of objective benefit. Why? Slaves are people die. Right? Field, real estate endures. No, it's not true. Shmuel says, no, stop. Don't do anything. Don't do anything. Don't even sell avodim to go out and buy fields. Why? My timer, because we'll say maybe the field's not going to work out. The idea is everything has risk. Therefore, we are totally risk averse when it comes to the portfolio of the Yisomim, and therefore just go into a holding pattern. The interesting, an apotropos can't free avadim. But the apotropin can sell the avodim to other people, and other people could go ahead and free the avodim. Rabbi says, Ani afu no saying the me'asmo v'yotze b'pnei shukam ochra. So ultimately, again, I will say, so the Eved can even buy himself out. Fine. So we'll say at the end of the day, so halach l'maisa, when the Yisomim go ahead and grow up, they have to settle up with the apotropos. Rashi says over here, k'sheyigdil yechashev iman v'yeshavish lo nishav yado klum. So whatever the apotropos does, every transaction he engages in is under the microscope. And when the Yisomim grow up, ultimately, again, they have a right to impose a shvuah. As the Mishnah said, they have a right to impose a shvuah upon him that he acted justly and correctly with the estate. Rav Shmuel Silber, einot tzarich. Shmuel says, "Ein otzarach, ein osin apotropin, ein otzarach." So Shmuel says, "Halacha lamaisa, you do not need this shvuah." Again, we'll talk about this. Ein osin apotropin nashim va'avadim uktanim. An apotropis can't be women, servants, and ketanim. Ve'min an avi yisum harshus biyado. Shabbos say that's just generally talking about a court-appointed apotropis. So Rashi points out over here, you wouldn't appoint women, servants, or ketanim as apotropin. So again, let's work backwards. Ketanim and avadim. So an eved, Rashi says, doesn't have ne'emanos, doesn't have credibility. A katan doesn't have das. An isha, why not? Why can't you appoint women as an apotropis? So Rashi says, in darkon lotzeis v'lobo v'litroach. Just to say, it's reflective of a societal norm, which is women weren't generally involved in commerce. See, I will say the apotropis does have to have business sense, because one of the things we'll discuss is, as much as the apotropis can't go ahead and start selling him, but if he does see a potential loss to the estate, he may be obligated to take certain steps in order to go ahead and stave off that loss. Similarly, we see that he does have the right to sell off certain properties for the sustenance of the Yisumim. So you have to know what you're doing in a business perspective. So the Gemara just suggests, Rashi suggests that this was just reflective of a societal norm, that often women just were not engaged in business. So because they weren't engaged in business, so the woman may not be the right person to run the estate. However, the Gemara says, we'll say, now, interestingly enough, this is all with a court-appointed apotropis. If the father himself decided to appoint one of these people, let's say the father has a sister, and he decided to appoint her as the apotropis, fine. So again, if he appoints her, that's it. Someone goes out there, we'll say, great story. Ho apotropis, the Rabbi Shmuel Rabbi Meir. We'll say there was once an apotropis in the neighborhood of Rabbi Meir. The Hava kam zabin ar asa, the zabin avdi. We'll say, what was he doing? He was selling land and buying avadim. Now we'll say, no one says you could do that, right? At most, the other opinion said that, one opinion said that what? You could sell avadim who die, because they're people, and buy land. But no one says you could sell land and buy avadim. I will say, what happened? V'lo shavke, right? V'lo shavke Rabbi Meir. Rabbi Meir shut him down. So you can't do that. So listen to this. Achvili b'chamei. So he had a dream. Ani laharos v'ata livnos. In the dream, a baskol, right, said to him, I'm trying to destroy, and you're trying to rebuild. Kadosh Baruch Hu says, you have to understand, Rashi points out over here, this father, right, Zechar Livracha, went ahead and built his empire, through, he had ill-gotten means, right? So Kadosh Baruch Hu says, I am looking to go ahead and divest the estate. That's why I'm making the apotropis do the wrong thing, and you, Rabbi Meir, are interfering in my plans. So I will say, so what happens? Rabbi Meir gets up, and what does he say? Afilu haki lo ashkach. Right? Rabbi Meir didn't pay any attention. Why not? Amar divrei chalomos lo ma'alin v'lo moridin. We'll say, wow, what a statement. Dreams, they're not beneficial, and they're not detrimental. Right? So I will say, this is incredible. Rabbi Meir says, okay, dreams are dreams, baskals are baskals. At the end of the day in life, do the right thing. Do the right thing. So this apotropos is doing the wrong thing. I have an obligation to step in. Rabbi Meir, you're staring. the divine plan, right? Literally, you're undermining. Rabbi Meir says, that's not my problem. I do my thing, God does his thing. I can't worry about the plans of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Well, I just need to focus on living in this world. Right now, the apotropos is doing something wrong. It's my obligation to step in. I will say that line of Divrei Chalomos, Lo Ma'alin V'lo Moridin. What a profound statement. I will say, what is the power of dreams? Right? What is the power of having dreams in life? So dreams are nice, right? Dreams ultimately, again, are good because they give you a vision of what you could do, what you could be, what you could build. But what's the problem? Saying too many times in life we remain in the dream state of life. Dream state of life. And Rabbi Meir says, Divrei Chalomos lo ma'alin v'lo moridin. Dreams are nice, but just understand, dreams are neither beneficial nor are they detrimental. Now I will say, what's the effect of having something that's not beneficial or detrimental? What's the effect of that? Right? Where does it leave you in life? Where does it leave you? Standing in place. See, I will say, dreaming a little bit is very good because it could inspire you to engage in dynamic activity. Dreaming too much could paralyze you and cause you to remain in place because you're so fixated with the dream. You're so fixated with the goal. You're so fixated with the vision, and you're thinking about it and dreaming it. Only one problem is you're not executing. That's what it means. Divrei chalomos lo ma'alin v'lo moridin. Dreams are good. Dreams are good, but perpetual dreaming, right? It's true. You're not committing an avera, not backsliding, right? Ein moridin v'lein ma'alin, but they're also not advancing in your life. Life is this very careful balance. This very careful combination. A little bit of dreaming is fantastic as long as it's accompanied by a whole lot of action. So the Gemara goes weiter. The Gemara is another story, great story. This is a great story. This is a great story. And I'll say, look when we're learning it. Hano Beitrei, the Igri Be Satan, the Chol Be Shimshi. There were these two people who were always arguing. And I will say, every towards sunset. And I will say, towards sunset of when? Listen to this. Rashi says, Shel Erev Shabbos. I would say, you might be too tired to remember what day it is today, right? It's Erev Shabbos Kodesh. So listen to this story. There are two people who were always arguing on Erev Shabbos. And what happens, I will say? What happens, the Gemara says, Rabbi Meir went over to the house, went over to them. I will say, by the way, the Rishonim comment on, why does it say, who are the two people? So I'll say, the Maharsha brings out, it was a husband and wife. Erev Shabbos. I will say, there is no time to go at it. Like Erev Shabbos, right? Erev Shabbos, right? For some reason, tension. I knew Shabbos has been coming for 6 days, right? It's not like it's, Shabbos, right? Not like it's a surprise, right? And it's not like, by the way, that the timing creeps up on us, right? In other words, you could see what time Shabbos is going to be 17 years in advance. Right? Where did this come from? 8:21, right? When was 7? No, actually 7:21, right? 8:21. Where did this come from? Yeah, it was yet amazingly enough. Why is it a dynamic in so many homes? Comes Erev Shabbos, right? It's not the sounds of harmony and the sounds of love that are wafting through the home, right? But it's often accusations, condemnations, finger pointing, why you this, that, why? Let's say, so the good news is, it's not new, right? The good news is Rabbi Meir was dealing with this as well. So what happened? Rabbi Meir went over there. Akvinu tlasa be'shimshi. So I'll say, literally translated, it means he stayed there for 3 sunsets ad da'avad luhu shalma, until he made peace between these two individuals. Shamei dika amri. So whatever it means, 3 sunsets. It means he stayed there for some prolonged amount of time in order to make shalom. Shamei dika amri. Rabbi say he heard the Satan saying, "Vai da'afkei mer lahu gavra mibeisei." Woe to me! This is the Satan speaking. Woe to me that ultimately, again, Rabbi Meir has removed me from this home. Incredible story. I will say. So first, I'll just point out an incredible idea. I saw brought down a story. Well, first of all, the idea over here is, why is it that fighting happens, in all seriousness, why is it that often there's tension on Erev Shabbos? So you could say, again, because there's a rush. I will say, it's not true, by the way. It can't be about the rush. Because really, at the end of the day, you know when Shabbos is happening. Right? So you could say, maybe we're ill-prepared. Okay, but still, I'll say, we're not incompetent people. right? In other words, like we're not incompetent people. So, and this happens every single week. So why is it that there is a tension that surrounds Erev Shabbos? So the answer happens to be very simple. The answer is, wherever there is the greatest Kedusha, there is also the greatest opposing force. Rav Avram Yitzchak Kohen Cook, Zechariah the Kadosh Baruch brings this down by Rivka Imenu when she is pregnant with twins. The pasuk says, "Vayisrotetzu abanim b'kirba." The children struggled in utero, right? Yaakov and Esav, and Rav Kook says that wherever there is kedusha, there is always an opposite and opposing force of tumah. Wherever there is a Yaakov, by definition, there is an Esav. I will say, Shabbos is me'ein olam haba. Shabbos is a little taste of the world to come. Shabbos is a little taste of living tachas kantei ashchina. So as that day, the holiness of that day approaches, the opposing forces become even stronger. And they push back. And the home, which is to be the epicenter of Kedusha on that day, which is Me'ein Olam Haba, that home becomes ground zero. That home becomes the womb between Yaakov and Esav. That home now becomes the battleground between Kedusha and Tumah. And often Tumah, in this context, takes the form of kas, of anger. Because for whatever the reason, there is no day where kas is more regularly found in the home than Erev Shabbos. But I will say it's not because we're last minute people. It's not that may amplify it. But Lamais, at the end of the day, it's because there's so much kedusha that's about to come, and wherever there is kedusha, ultimately there is always an opposing tumah. And I will say that being said, plan ahead. Plan ahead. The truth is, a person shouldn't be engaged in Shabbos preparations within the hour before Shabbos. They shouldn't, unless of course there's extenuating circumstances. By an hour before Shabbos, especially summer Shabbosos, you should be done. You should be done. And if you're not done, again, if it's an extenuating circumstance, okay. But the Shabbos said the day is long enough and we are capable enough people to structure our lives in such a way that we do not have to go into Shabbos harried. We don't have to go into Shabbos into a flurry of activity. The day that is Me'ein Olam Haba requires proper hachana. And we know this. We know this from our own lives. When you do proper hachana, you bring down the tension level in the home significantly. But I will say, at the end of the day, I'll tell you an incredible ma'aseh. There's a story that's told that a couple once came to the Belzer Rebbe, and the couple said that they were having incredible difficulty in Shalom Bayis. So they asked the Rebbe for an eitzah. What should we do? So I said, get ready. This is wild. The Rebbe says, you should learn this Gemara in Maseches Gittin every day together. The Rebbe says, this is the skula for Shalom Bayis. Couple should learn this Gemara together, and that's the skula for Shalom Bayis. I was saying, because so often, why is it that people encounter problems in their marriage unlike any other relationship? Why is that? We'll say it's the same idea as Erev Shabbos. Because why is there so much tension in Erev Shabbos? Because there's so much Kedusha that is building up. And the more Kedusha, the more the opposing force. So we'll say, why is it that marriage is often the relationship that is fraught with more problems than any other relationship? Because we'll say it is the relationship which potentially contains the most Kedusha. Wherever you have the power for the greatest amount of Kedusha is also where there is going to be the greatest pushback for Tumah. An ability to build a relationship with a spouse, Rabbosai, is the relationship which houses the greatest potential for Kedusha, and therefore it faces the greatest amount of stress, the greatest amount of pushback. So says the Belzer Rebbe, you want the school of Shalom Bayis? Gittin Nun Beis Amud Aleph. Learn the Erev Shabbos Gemara every day. The Rebbe says, school of Shalom Bayis. I don't know the end of the story, by the way. I don't know, right? But again, if the Rebbe says it, it's going to work. We'll say incredible. We'll say, by the way, I'll also mention that what you begin to see from this story of Rabbi Meir is how Rabbi Meir ultimately is getting involved in all of these things. Sometimes you see someone's having discord and you say to yourself, not my problem. Rabbi Meir was one of those guys, one of those people who when he saw a problem, he made it his problem. maybe there's probably an effort to fix it. And Rabbi say, let's go weiter. Oh my gosh, so much to do. Let's go weiter. Says the Gemara, how apotropis? David b'Shavuz Rabbi Shmuel Levi. It was an apotropis in the neighborhood of Rabbi Shmuel Levi. David kamizabin ara v'zabin turei. So ultimately, again, he was selling land and buying oxen. V'lo amar le v'lo midi. And ultimately, again, Rabbi Shmuel Levi didn't say anything to him. So like Rabbi Yossi, he held like Rabbi Yossi. The Amar, the Rabbi listen to this. So we'll say, so this seems to be wrong. This seems to be wrong, right? So he's selling oxen, and I'm sorry, he's selling land and he's buying oxen. Rabbi say, it seems to be wrong. So how can you do this? So we'll say, says the Amar, but Rabbi Shmuel Levi didn't say anything. So like Rabbi Yossi, because Rabbi Shmuel Levi held like Rabbi Yossi. What did Rabbi Yossi say? Then Rabbi Yossi, said Rabbi Yossi, mi Yomai lo karisi ishti ula shori shori. I never called my wife, and my ox. Ela li ishti besi. I called my wife my home, right? Ulashori shori, ulashori sadi, and my ox my field. So I will say the point over here is that an ox is often referred to as a field. So for apparently Rabbi Shmuel Levi didn't say anything because it was essentially selling one field for another field. I will say this idea also of calling one's wife one's home. I will say also such a profound yesod in terms of the essence of marriage. Let's say, the Baal Shem Tov HaKadosh brings down, we know that we have a minhag in Klal Yisrael. Not everybody has it, but there is a minhag that the Kala walks around the Chassan 7 times. Right? So the question is always asked, right? If Kala's walking, why doesn't the Chassan walk around 7 times? Right? Or let them do 3.5 and 3.5. Although that would be a nightmare to keep. Already as it is, for some reason, why it's so complicated to keep count of 7. Under a chuppah is not okay. Like we're Klal Yisrael, like we survive everything. Yet for some reason count. All right, but anyway, different story. Let's say so. Why is it that the Kala does it? So I say. So remember again, Baal Shem Tov HaKadosh says very simply, the number 7, of course, represents creation of the world. Right? What is the Kala doing when she walks around to her chassan 7 times? She says, "I recognize that I have the primary responsibility for creating the identity of the home." But we like to talk about shared partnership and this and everybody. It's true. But at the end of the day, it is the wife, it is the mother who creates the core identity of the home. The husband, the father has to participate in many other ways, but the ikar identity of Osai is created by the mother. That's what Baal Shem Tov HaKadosh, the wife. That's what Baal Shem Tov HaKadosh says, that ultimately, again, she's the one who walks around 7 times. She's the dynamic, active one. The chassan is sitting there. It's also metaphorical, right? Like the chassan is there, right? Everything is happening around him, and she's taking the ownership over creating the core identity. That's the idea. When Rabbi Yossi says that I never called my wife, I called my wife my home. She's not simply a spouse, she's everything. She is the one who creates the identity of the home. The Gemara goes weiter. Ano Yasmi, Davismichi, Gabi Usafta. We'll say there were these Yisomim, and they were relying on this Safta. We'll say, who's Safta? Right? An older woman. Now, she was not a formal apotropis, she was just someone who helped the Yisomim out. Havalu Tursa, so they had a cow. Shaklav is Avintanele. So ultimately, she sold the cow. So Asu Krovim Lakamed Rav Nachman. So the relatives of these kids, of these Yisomim, came to Rav Nachman. Amrle Mai Avidite Dizabna. Why did she go ahead and sell it? Amrlahu Yisomim Shesam Choitza Balabayis Tinan. Right? Ultimately, again, it says that halacha l'maisa, Yisomim who relied on the balabayis, v'hayaker b'shusa deloke, v'hayaker, but the price of the cow went up. The value of the cow, so they were upset that she sold the cow, and meanwhile the cow appreciated. To which the Gemara says, I will say, by the way, also such a profound story. Isn't it interesting that you have these Yisomim who are relying on this Safta, right? Who's Safta? Just some nice elderly woman. And it will say, interestingly enough, so if you don't read the story, you think to yourself, well, they must have no relatives. But yet, what happens? Then, once Safta sells the cow, so suddenly what happens? All the relatives show up. So it's just an interesting dynamic in life, how sometimes, when something needs to get done, sometimes people are nowhere to be found. But when they perceive that something goes wrong, then suddenly again everyone is front and center. Interesting dynamic. The Gemara goes weiter. So what happened? So they were upset because the cow appreciated. So the Gemara says, well, it's true it appreciated, but appreciated while it was owned by the purchaser. But 1 second, but the Yisomim didn't get paid yet. Rabbi say this is fascinating. The property of the Yisomim is no different than Hekdish. Rabbi say the way it works with Hekdish is a transaction with Hekdish is only finalized once money is given. Once money is given. We'll say in general, when you acquire metaltalin are acquired through Mashiach, through taking physical possession. But yet, by hekdish, right, a property transfer, or I should say, not a property, an item transfer, a transaction is only finished when money changes hands. Rabbi Chaniloi says, Yisomim are like hekdish, and therefore the transaction is only completed with money. So that what that means is, in this case, if the Yisomim didn't yet get paid, and the cow appreciated, they could take the cow back, because the cow is still in their possession. Chamrei. So the Gemara says, Chamrei di Rabna Ukva Yasma. So we'll say, Rabna Ukva, the Yasam, had wine. Mashchua ba'arba arba. So ultimately, again, they sold it. Right, it was sold on his behalf for 4 zuz a barrel. V'yakar, and ultimately, and then it became more expensive. V'kam b'shisa, and ultimately now is worth 6 zuz a barrel. Asakni Rav Nachman, they came before Rav Nachman. Amar lohu tachanu Rabbi Chanilai bar Idi. Okay, Rabbi Chanilai bar Idi. Amar Shmuel nichse yisom harahin kagdish v'lo mikni ela b'kaspa. So once we have this concept that ultimately the property of yisom is treated like the property of hegdish, and just like the property of hekdish, ultimately the transaction is not finalized until money changes hands. Same thing applies to the Yisomim. So also what this does is, it gives the Yisomim maximum flexibility that if the item appreciates before the purchaser takes possession, they could, so to speak, back out of the transaction and benefit from the appreciated value. Now watch this. Mashach peri miyasmi iyakar. So we'll say, if the Yisomim, let's say the estate, the apotropos was selling property, he was selling peros, and the peros appreciated. So, but money didn't exchange hands. So we'll say, ultimately, again, we'll say, because this way, halacha l'maisa, Yisomim could back out. Zol, we'll say, watch this. What happens if the Yisomim sold peros, right? The purchaser took possession of the peros, didn't pay money, and now the produce depreciated. So we'll say in this case, remember again the Yisomim, what's in their best interest? To lock down the transaction and not to have the purchaser avoid it. So we'll say ultimately again, so in this case, we'll say essentially what we say is like this: the Yisomim get the best of both worlds. When it's beneficial for their transactions to be treated like hektish transactions, we do that. And when it's beneficial for their transactions to be treated like regular transactions, we do that. So if the property appreciates before money has changed hands, we treat it like hektish, and the Yisomim could back out of the transaction, keep the asset, because now it's appreciated. When the item has depreciated, then we say, once you've taken possession, even if money has not changed hands, sorry, transaction is done, you can't go back on it, like a regular transaction. Incredible. Amshichulu per liyasmi. So we'll say, what happens if the reverse? The Yisomim took possession of peros, iyaker, so ultimately if they go up, lo yekoach had yorchar mehektish. The transaction of a regular person shouldn't be any more stringent than hektish. No, as Rabbi say, if they took possession and it went up, transaction is sealed. Zol, if it depreciated, ultimately again, that halacha l'maisa transaction is not finalized until money changes hands. But that doesn't always work out well for the Yisomim. Because sometimes the Yisomim will need produce, and no one's going to give it to them until they furnish funds. If the Yisomim went in and paid for produce, Zol, if it went down in price, a regular transaction should be no more chamor than hektish, and therefore the Yisomim should be able to back out because they didn't yet do Mashiach. Iyakar, if it became more expensive, Saraminei Hainu Rav Chanilai bar Idi. So Amar Lahu Rav Shisha Braid Rav Idi, that's not necessarily good for them. Why? Harohu Lidido, it could be objectively detrimental. Why? Amad Beis, the Asul Meimar Lahu Nisifu Chitacham Ba'aliyah. Ultimately, I will say, because people could claim, well, you acquired it with your money, it was already yours, and by the way, there was a fire in the storehouse, and you lost your produce. If ultimately, again, if the money was given to be a Yisomim for peros, if the produce went up in value, then ultimately, again, it wasn't Mashiach, so therefore they should be able to back out. So, Zol, if it went down in value, Savra Minei Hainu Rav Chanilai bar Idi. Amalahu Rav Shisha Braid Rav Idi v'harohu l'dido. It's not necessarily good for them. Why? Sometimes they're going to need money. No one's going to give them the money until they go in and they give the produce. So we'll say. So I just want to point out what's happening over here. What's happening over here is as follows. We'll say that halacha l'maisa. Essentially, what we're saying is like this: we always want to give the Yisomim the benefit of every transaction. So essentially, I will say in halacha. Let me tell you this outside. There are two different types of transactions. There's a hekdish transaction and a hedyot transaction. I will say in a hekdish transaction, when is the transaction affected? When is it affected? Actually, let's work backwards. By a hedyo transaction, metaltalin, right? When is the transaction affected? When? Mashicha. Mashicha, not about money. In other words, even if you give money, the item has not been transferred. It's all about Mashicha. All about Mashicha. In Hedyot, in Hegdish, how was the transaction affected? Money. Mos, Kesef. So essentially what the Gemara is saying is when it comes to the Yisomim, so what type of transactional framework are they governed by? And the answer is both. Whichever one is more beneficial to them. So I'll say, and pretty much what that depends on is, has the asset appreciated or depreciated as the transaction is unfolding? So whichever transactional framework gives them greater benefit is the one we're going to go with. Now, all the Gemara sensitizes us to, I will say, is just understand that while you're trying to benefit the Yisomim, which is beautiful, Lamaisa, just understand people may also become more reluctant to do business with them. Right? Because if you know that when you do business with the Yisomim, essentially you're going to get the short end of the stick, right? One way or the other, people may just be reluctant. So just understand, in your effort to benefit the Yisomim, you may also be putting them at a disadvantage because, again, everyone's going to be hesitant. But I will say, but that's the bottom line. We give them the transactional benefit. Incredible. I will say, let's finish up. Amar of Shisha. Sorry, I just skipped, right? Good. Amar Rashi, Ana Rav Kahana, Chasinina Ashtar Di'imei Dezi'ira Yasma, Debezam Na'ara. So let's listen to this. So Rav Ashi said, me and Rav Kahana, we signed on a document of sale by the mother of Ze'ira the Yasam. Essentially, the mother was kind of acting as the apotropis. So we'll say this could be a case where the father appointed her, right, as the apotropis over the estate, and she was selling off land. Well, so you can't sell off land. She was selling off land, lekarga, to pay off the head tax, below achrasta, without announcing it. I will say in general, when you sell land, right, specifically, again, land of Yisomim, you're supposed to announce it for 30 days. Why? I will say, what's our goal? Drive up the price. We want to create a shtickle bidding war. So if you just do a fire sale, right, there's no time for anyone to hear about the land. So we'll say, but yet she sold off a piece of real estate immediately to pay off the head tax. We'll say, because Nardoim said, lekargo, to pay off your head tax, to pay taxes, to pay for food, and to pay for burial, you could sell off land without prior announcement. Which I will say makes sense because these are things that are all considered to be immediate needs. So because they are immediate needs, you can go ahead and sell them. Even without a prior announcement. Incredible. We'll say this Kavaiter, great story. Amram Tzaval, Apatropa di Yasmihavu. Amram the dyer, right, was an apotropis for Yisomim. Asu Krov Mekamed Rav Nachman. It's supposed to listen to this. So the relatives of the Yisomim, came to Rav Nachman. They were unhappy with Amram. They said, Amrulei, Kalavish Mechasim Yasmi. He is spending the estate's money on his own clothing. Right? The guy's getting custom suits. Right? Suddenly he's dressing all nicely. Amrullahu. So Rav Nachman said, you're right, he should. Kihechi delishtamin milei. I will say, because Amram wants people to take him seriously. I will say, this is an interesting yesod. How people, right? Again, I will say, whether we like to admit it or not, right? Lamaisa, we judge. We judge everyone. And I will say, how do we judge people? Right? How they dress. Right? We judge them how they dress. We judge them on the car they drive. We judge them on the house. That's it. Especially when you're judging success. Right? How do you know if a person's successful? The answer is you don't. But we like to rely on superficial, observable metrics. Right? If you dress a certain way, live a certain material life, you must be successful. So Rav Nachman says to this, so it's interesting. Rav Nachman says to the relatives, it's good for Amram to look good. It's good for Amram to look successful. Why? Because it'll help him in going ahead and navigating the trend. In other words, people will take him seriously. But he's also eating, right? He's also eating well, and he's drinking fine wines, and what does that have to do with anything else? So I'll say, fine, the dress, the clothing I could hear, because that's klapei chutz. What about the other stuff? To which the Gemara says, there's a incredible v'lo amid, Eimar mitzia ashkach. Rav Nachman says, well, maybe he found an object. In other words, how do you know that money is coming from the Yisomim. Maybe at the end of the day he found a diamond or he found something else and he cashed it and he's using it to support this more lavish lifestyle. In other words, unless you have proof that he's paying it for from the estate of the Yisomim, ultimately, again, there's no claim to be made. Vaha kam mafsid, to which the Gemara says, but he's, look at Rashi. Vaha kam mafsid, Rashi says, he's not taking proper care of the estate. Amar lahu, I see sa'adi de mafsid va'askaline. Okay, bring me witnesses. In other words, you can't just make a claim. You have to support that claim in some way. If an apotropos causes a loss to the estate, you can remove him. The itmar apotropos the mafsid. If you have an apotropos that causes a loss, Rav Huna amrav misalkinle, we remove him. The Rabbi Shila amri lo misalkinle, we don't remove him. The hilchasa misalkinle. Ultimately, we'll say, we will go ahead and actively remove him from his position. We'll say one more piece. We'll say the Mishnah said that if an apotropos was appointed by the father of the Yisomim, he has to take an oath when he finishes. In other words, when he finishes his apotropos kite, I will say we assume that when someone agrees, when the father asks someone to be an apotropos and the guy agrees, we'll say, why is the guy agreeing to the apotropos, to be the apotropos? Why is he agreeing? Because he must owe something to the father. Right? The father did him some tov, because we'll say being an apotropos is a big responsibility. So he must owe something to the father. That's why he's doing it. So because he owes something to the father, the fact that he knows that he's going to have to take a shvuah is not going to prevent him from becoming the apotropos. And we'll say, contrast this with an apotropos appointed by Beis Din. Right? An apotropos appointed by Beis Din, we'll say, why is this guy doing it? Why is this guy doing it? As a favor to Beis Din. Well, if it's a favor, if you ask him to take a shvuah, then what? He's not going to do it. All right, well, so stop over here for today. Wow. What a way to go into Shabbos, we'll say. Especially with an Erev Shabbos Gemara. Shkayach. All right, Chevron Zoom. Have a great day, everyone. Mel, I don't know. It looks like you're like in a SpaceX something, ready to take off over here. I don't know. Hatzlacha. Jerry, wonderful to see you on the rooftop. All right, shkayach, everyone. I'm sorry.